Sarah Navin is a journalist in Australia, and she joins us now. Sarah, thank you so much for your time this morning.
No problem. How are you going?
I'm doing great, and it's lovely to speak to you. Right, before we talk about how things developed overnight or during the day or whatever time it is, wherever we're talking, can you tell me what the reaction was in Australia to the news that Novak Djokovic had received a medical exemption to take part in this tennis tournament? Because he's a well-known anti-vaccination person. I don't mean that as an insult. He said that himself. What was the reaction in Australia, which has really been under very stiff lockdowns for the longest of times in certain parts anyway?
My goodness, yes. If I could give it one word, I would say uproar. Yeah, as you said, Australia is in the depths of our largest COVID wave at the moment. We're having more than 70,000 cases a day. We only just came out of severe lockdown restrictions in October. And Melbourne, especially where the Australian Open is being held, has the title of the world's most lockdown city. It was under heavy restrictions for 260 days. So this news, I think, is a bit of a rubbing salt in the wound for a lot of people in Australia because, people weren't able to see critically ill relatives or go to funerals. And there's this sense that elite sports stars are given special privileges and, these exemptions to play tennis when there's so many other important sacrifices that they've had to make. So, yes, certainly it was creating a lot of reaction across the country today.
And it is not necessarily about the virus itself or the vaccinations itself, is it? Or maybe it is, you can answer the question, but it's really a sense that, and we get it here and people get it everywhere, that there's one set of rules for your regular folk, and then if you're flying in to enter Big Brother or something, or to play in Australia, in the Australian Open, it's another set of rules for those that are rich or well off. Is that the element of it that's angering people?
Absolutely. We had a few early cases early on where it was movie stars or sporting teams or, these big groups that would get government exemptions because they brought great tourism dollars or, they had a match coming up that was going to be televised when your everyday Australian has had to miss out on so much. So you're right, there is amazing support for vaccination here in Australia. We're more than 90% double dosed across the country. But of course, he does have a choice not to be vaccinated, but Australians say, well, we have a choice to reject you because rules are rules and we've abided by them and we've missed out on a lot. So that's the feeling.
So he's locked up in a hotel at the moment. Was he refused access based on the merits of his exemption, or was it the wrong visa being filled out? Because I'm reading sort of mixed reports in that regard.
Yeah, so from what we understand, he landed at Melbourne Airport on Wednesday night and was rejected entry and had his visa cancelled on the spot because he failed to provide any evidence that he was double vaccinated, of course, or that he had a legitimate exemption. But there has been reports as well that apparently he did present Tennis Australia logo documents. He was photographed doing so. Perhaps he truly believed that he was eligible, and then the Australian government has stepped in response to the public outrage because the Victorian government did have this Tennis Australia policy where they had, a team of, I think it was 2 independent medical panels. It was anonymous. They didn't know who the players were. So they had this system set up which apparently granted him an exemption, but then something has changed in the last 24 hours and it could have been politically motivated by our Prime Minister Scott Morrison. As we do know, he's facing an election in a few months' time.
Yeah, and of course, too, this was supposed to be blind in that whoever was deciding, the panel that was deciding whether or not who could get in or who couldn't get in, apparently they didn't know it was whether or not it would have been Novak. And I note, particularly maybe between some of the Australian tennis players, a bit of scepticism or cynicism in that regard. That might be a cause for another investigation to see, was this truly a situation that he, just as the number one tennis player in the big draw, happened to blindly get this exemption?
Yeah, I think we need to look into exactly how that decision was made. Apparently there's 3 other tennis players that have also been granted an exemption. The world wants to know if he has a genuine reason medically to not be vaccinated, but from all accounts of what we've seen him say, it is that he's against it. So on what grounds Tennis Australia decided to gain him entry is still an unknown, and that's causing a bit of pain for many people.
And very finally, Sarah, more generally, you guys are probably a year or 2 years behind us in terms of, really big significant waves of COVID because of the policies you adopted previously. What's the mood like amongst Australians, and what is life like over there at the moment?
It's been a really difficult start to the year for us here. It was hard to make any New Year's resolutions because we really ended the year opening up. Our state premiers were telling us that this was the path forward, and yes, we'd have cases, but it wasn't going to, prevent us from doing things. And that's true in a way. Our restaurants and cafes are open, but now that we're dealing with this wave, people are scared to go out, scared to mingle. There's so many businesses that are losing staff members due to COVID cases and people needing to be in isolation. We're having trouble getting, trucks sending our food to supermarkets, and the shelves are, empty and missing key products like meat. So we're really facing challenge after challenge as we try and adapt to what is a less serious variant from what we're experiencing so far, but still the daily impact and the cancellations of things that you plan for the future. So there's a bit of disappointment still in the air as we move through this next phase.
Yeah, and very finally, I mean, I know it's a very serious matter, but part of me would have been interested to see what kind of reaction Novak Djokovic might have got on the court as he stepped out. He'd be used to adorning fans, of course. It might have been, or even in fact, it still possibly could be, quite a different reception.
Yeah, look, I'm a big tennis fan myself and have been to the Australian Open and cheered him on, but I think he would have got a pretty big boo walking out onto the crowd, or whether many people would have even watched his match. That might be a bit harsh to say, but, we appreciate good sportsmen, but we appreciate people who are also good sportsmen's qualities. It's a real Australian trait of ours, so I'm not sure, even from the biggest tennis fans, whether he would have got a positive reception.
All right, Sarah Navin, journalist in Australia, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it greatly.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's been lovely speaking to you.